Hello everyone, welcome to Yakutsk, the coldest major city in the world. I'm standing here right now, and it is absolutely freezing. My face feels like it's going to fall off. Can you believe it? More than 300,000 people live here, even though in winters it normally gets below -50 degrees Celsius. That is insanely cold. It's so cold that your phone won't work, metal sticks to your skin, and you can literally freeze to death in minutes if you're not careful. It's like living on another planet. So, the big question is, the one you're all probably screaming at your screens right now. You might be wondering, how do people actually live in a place this cold? What kind of superpowered houses do they have? Do they live in igloos? Spoiler alert, they don't. But what they do live in is even crazier. Today I'm going to show you what real homes look like in Yakutsk. We're going inside, we're going to see everything, and I'm going to break down exactly how they survive this extreme environment. We're not just looking at one house, that would be boring. We're going on an epic tour. We'll visit 3 of the most common types of buildings where people live. Media group, trio of houses in snowy Yakutsk, wooden, concrete block, and modern apartments side by side. Labeled shots of 3 building types stock distribute equally, from ancient wooden houses that are literally sinking into the ground, to giant Soviet-era concrete blocks, all the way to brand new high-tech apartment buildings that look like something from the future. This is going to be insane. Let's go and see. Alright, first stop, we're diving straight into history. We're at one of the oldest types of residential buildings you can find in Yakutsk. These are called dvuketajki, which literally just means 2-storied. They're made entirely of wood, and they look like something out of a fairy tale, especially covered in all this snow. These buildings were put up super fast, mostly in the 1950s and 60s, to house the rapidly growing population. It was a quick fix, but they've been home to generations of families. Let's go inside. The first thing you notice is this tiny little entrance area, almost like an airlock. And then, bam, a second, much thicker door. This is a critical feature for survival here. That space between the 2 doors creates a thermal barrier, a buffer zone that stops the brutal -50-degree cold from rushing straight into the living space. It's a simple but genius idea that you see everywhere in Yakutsk. Without this, your heating bills would be astronomical, and you'd never ever feel warm. Okay, now we're in the actual apartment. It's pretty small, but it's surprisingly cozy. This is the kitchen. It's got all the basics: a stove, a sink, some cabinets. Everything is compact. The pipes for the water and heating are all exposed, running along the walls. This isn't just for a rustic look, it's practical. If a pipe freezes and bursts, which is a huge risk here, it's much easier to access and repair if it's not buried inside a wall. It's a constant battle against the cold. Moving on, this is the main living area. It doubles as a living room and sometimes a dining room. You can see the family photos on the wall, the comfy sofa. It really feels like a home. The windows are also a huge deal. They are always double or even triple glazed. Look at the frost patterns on the outside pane. It's like natural art. But that thick layer of ice shows you just how hard the windows are working to keep the warmth in and the deadly cold out. Here's the bathroom. Again, super compact. You've got your toilet, a small sink, and a shower. What's wild to think about is that when these were first built, many didn't have indoor plumbing. People had to use outhouses in -50-degree weather. Can you even imagine that? Having this, a warm place to shower, is a luxury that older generations here would have literally dreamed of. It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? And this is the bedroom. Just enough space for a bed and a wardrobe. It's simple, but what else do you really need? The real challenge with these old wooden buildings isn't just the cold, it's the ground they're built on. Yakutsk is built on permafrost, which is permanently frozen ground. But as the climate changes and the buildings themselves radiate heat, that permafrost starts to melt underneath them. So what happens when frozen ground turns to mush? The building starts to sink, unevenly. You can see it everywhere. Look at this crack running up the wall. The door frame is crooked. The floor isn't perfectly level. The entire building is slowly, but surely, being warped and twisted by the thawing ground. It's a massive engineering problem for the entire city, and these old wooden houses are the first victims. Because of this sinking problem, the government has a program to relocate people from these dangerous buildings into newer, safer apartments. It's a slow process, but it's happening. Many families get a brand new apartment for free. You'd think everyone would be desperate to leave, right? But it's complicated. Many people have lived here their entire lives, raised their children here. There's so much nostalgia and so many memories tied to these walls. Let's talk money. Living here is surprisingly cheap. The rent for a small apartment like this could be as low as $150 a month. And because they're part of a centralized, citywide heating system, the utility bills are also very low, maybe around $50 a month, even in the dead of winter. So for people on a tight budget, these sinking, crooked houses are an incredibly affordable option. If you can live with the constant reminder that your home is slowly returning to the earth. Okay, we've seen the past. Now let's look at the next evolution of housing in Yakutsk. I'm standing in front of a giant. These massive 9-story buildings are classic Soviet-style apartment blocks. They are everywhere in the city. They're called KPD buildings, which stands for a Russian term that basically means large panel building. They are constructed from huge, prefabricated concrete panels that were made in a factory and then assembled on-site like a giant Lego set. This method allowed the Soviets to build housing incredibly fast in the 70s and 80s, and they needed to. But look closer. The most important feature isn't the concrete, it's what's underneath. The entire building is raised off the ground on massive concrete stilts, or piles. There's a gap of several feet between the ground and the bottom of the building. This is absolutely critical. This design allows cold air to circulate underneath, keeping the permafrost frozen solid and preventing the building's heat from melting it. From the outside, every single one of these buildings looks almost identical. They are uniform, gray, and honestly, a little bit intimidating. It's a classic Soviet aesthetic. But the real story is on the inside. While the exteriors are all the same, the apartments themselves are all unique. People renovate them, decorate them, and turn these concrete boxes into personal, cozy homes. Let's head up and see one for ourselves. Here we are in the entryway. The first thing you see is this bank of metal mailboxes. It feels very old school, but it's a system that works. The hallways are pretty basic, nothing fancy, just concrete walls and a single elevator. The air is thick with the smell of different foods being cooked. You can hear the distant sounds of TVs and families talking. It's a whole vertical village packed into one building. Now, welcome to the apartment. This is a standard 2-bedroom layout. As soon as you step inside, you feel the warmth. It's a huge contrast to the stark hallway and the brutal cold outside. This family has completely redone the interior. Modern floors, nice wallpaper, a brand new kitchen. It just goes to show you can't judge a book by its cover, or in this case, an apartment by its concrete exterior. The layout is very practical. You have a central hallway that connects all the rooms. Here's the living room, where the family gathers to watch TV. Over here is the master bedroom, and down the hall is a smaller second bedroom. The kitchen is separate, which is common in these buildings. It's not a huge space, but it's functional, and most importantly, it's incredibly warm thanks to the city's central heating system. Let's talk about that heating. Huge, hot radiators like this one are in every single room. The heat comes from a central plant that serves the whole city, burning natural gas to heat water that then gets pumped through a massive network of insulated pipes to every building. The heat is on 24/7 during the long winter, and you don't even control the temperature. It's just on, and it's always hot. Sometimes it's so hot people have to open their windows to cool down, even when it's minus 50 degrees Celsius outside. Of course, these buildings aren't perfect. The concrete panels don't always have the best insulation between them. The seams can be weak spots where cold air gets in. People often have to add extra insulation around their windows, or even hang heavy carpets on the walls, not for decoration, but to add an extra layer of warmth. It's a constant DIY battle to keep the drafts out. So, what does it cost to live in one of these Soviet giants? To buy a 2-bedroom apartment like this, you're looking at around $60,000 to $70,000. Rent would be about $400 a month. Utility bills, including that non-stop heating, electricity, and water, are a bit higher than the wooden houses, maybe around $100 to $120 a month. For many residents, these buildings are the perfect balance. They're stable, warm, relatively affordable, and a huge step up from the old wooden houses. We've seen the past and the present. Now, hold on to your hats, because we are stepping into the future of Yakutsk living. I'm in a complex called Prometey, and honestly, this is not your grandma's apartment block. This is a brand new modern residential complex, and it's honestly more like a self-contained city. It has everything. There are shops, cafes, pharmacies, and even daycares right here inside the complex. You barely have to go outside in the winter if you don't want to. And check this out. This is the biggest game changer. An underground heated parking garage. This is, the ultimate luxury in Yakutsk. Usually people have to leave their cars running 24/7 in the winter, or they just won't start. It costs a fortune in gas. Or they have to build insulated garages with their own heaters. Here, you just drive in, park your car in a warm, safe space, and take an elevator straight up to your apartment. This feature alone is why these buildings are so incredibly popular. I actually lived in this exact building when I first moved to Yakutsk, so this is, well, a bit of a homecoming for me. Let's go up to an apartment that's very similar to my old one. Just like the old wooden houses, you have multiple doors for insulation. First, a basic metal door into a small shared vestibule for 2 apartments. Then, you have your own main door, which is super thick and insulated. It honestly feels like a bank vault door. Security and warmth, all in one. Welcome inside. This is a typical 1-bedroom apartment in a new building. It's bright, it's clean, it's modern. The layout is more open plan than the Soviet buildings. Here you have a combined kitchen and living area, which is great for having friends over. The finishes are all high quality, the windows are top of the line, and the insulation is incredible. You would never ever guess that it's deathly cold just a few feet away. The technology in these buildings is a huge step up. We've got thermostats to actually control the heat in each room, which is a novelty here. The ventilation systems are better, so the air doesn't get as stuffy. There's a concierge at the main entrance for security. It's all the comforts and conveniences you'd expect in a modern apartment building anywhere in the world, but they're especially appreciated here where the environment is so harsh. Of course, all this luxury comes at a price. A 1-bedroom apartment like this costs around $80,000 to buy. To rent it, you're looking at about $500 a month. And the utility bills are the highest yet, maybe $150 a month, partly because you're also paying for the maintenance of the common areas, the heated garage, and the concierge. But for many people, especially young professionals and families, the extra cost is absolutely worth it for the comfort and peace of mind. Now, you might be thinking, what about private houses? Don't people live in those? Yes, they do, but it's a huge challenge. Building a private house that can withstand the permafrost and the cold is incredibly expensive. You need a special foundation, a super insulated structure, and your own independent heating system, often running on natural gas. It gives you more space and privacy, but you're also responsible for everything. If your heat goes out in the middle of a January night, that's a life-threatening emergency. So while some people do choose the path of a private home, these large, centrally managed apartment buildings are the dominant way of life in Yakutsk. They provide a collective solution to an extreme collective problem. From the sinking wooden houses to the uniform Soviet blocks, to these new modern fortresses, the evolution of housing here tells the story of this city's incredible resilience and ingenuity. Each type of building represents a different era, a different approach to the same fundamental challenge: how to build a warm, safe home on frozen ground in the coldest city in the world. It's a constant innovation, a constant fight against the elements. And seeing these modern complexes, it's clear that they are not just surviving here, they are finding new and better ways to thrive. So there you have it. We've toured 3 completely different types of homes in the world's coldest city, from sinking wooden relics to concrete Soviet blocks to these futuristic modern complexes. Each one has its own story, its own pros and cons, and its own price tag. We've seen how architecture has to adapt to fight against the insane cold and the shifting permafrost. It's a constant battle between human ingenuity and the power of nature. But I think what really matters isn't how fancy your building is. It's not about whether you have heated parking or a concierge. At the end of the day, it's how warm and comfortable it feels inside. Because home isn't just walls, it's about the people who live there. It's the feeling of safety and comfort you get when you shut that thick, insulated door and leave the -50-degree cold outside. It's about creating a small pocket of warmth for your family in the middle of an extreme environment. This journey through Yakutsk's homes has been incredible, and it really makes me appreciate the comfort of my own home. So, what kind of homes do people live in where you are? Are they built for heat, for cold, for earthquakes, for hurricanes? I am genuinely curious about the different ways people live all over the world. Please share in the comments. I would love to know. For now, thank you for watching and have a good day.